And hello, I think it's noon. Just turned noon by my computer. So that means it is time for our weekly Lunch and Learn with me, Dr. Polly Heil-Mealey at Abundant Health and Wellness. Now, I'm just going to give you a disclaimer. If you're under 18, I don't want you listening to this podcast. And if you're male, you probably don't want to be listening to this broadcast. So this is about vaginas and tatas, so breasts as well. So we're going to talk about some really intimate things today, some things that I just found out about. You would think that I would know these things, but I don't. And so I kind of was concerned about bringing this to you today because, once it's out there on the internet, it just kind of goes everywhere. But anyway, it's important. So we're going to talk about vaginas first. We had a Facebook Live a few weeks ago that we talked about having a good lactobacillus in the vagina. And so the lactobacillus is what protects us from vaginal atrophy. It protects us from different other microorganisms that shouldn't be there. Hi, Sandy. Thanks for joining. I know someone else joined, but it's not scrolling to let me know who you are, but thank you anyway. So the lactobacillus keeps a lot of other microorganisms at bay. And so like I said earlier on the Facebook Live we did before, my mom told me that the vagina was a self-cleaning organism. You really didn't need to pay too much attention as long as you bathe daily and, we're fairly moral, everything would be okay. But what I have since found in that people that have cultured the vaginal secretions, there's just quite a little bit more going on down there than I really realized. So one thing I want to talk to you about is the migration of microorganisms. So we're going to call these bacteria, we're going to call them mycoplasma, and we're also going to call it a fungus. So a little bit of anatomy lesson here. So you've got the anus, and then on the way you've got the vagina, and then past that you've got the urethra. So when we are not paying particular attention to hygiene, bacteria that lives in each one of those microbiomes can be transferred by not wiping correctly in the bathroom, can be transferred by digital foreplay, can be transferred by penetration, can be transferred oral sex. So all of that has a big deal when you're using tampons or if you use sex toys and you're introducing other bacteria. So I think we kind of all know about that part. But what we may not know for the ladies that wear the thong underwear, this is really, really important because that piece that goes from the back of the panty to the front of the panty really hugs your body. If you have poor digestion and you've got messy bowels, then you're getting that fecal matter on that material in that panty, and it just travels down. Those microorganisms, especially E. coli and whatnot, they travel down that fabric to get to the vagina and to the urethra. So this is something that maybe we haven't considered. This is something that some people wear them, some people don't. I'm not making a value judgment on that, but what I'm saying is if you have poor digestion, now what does that mean? If you have poor digestion, then when you move your bowels, and remember we want you to move your bowels 2 to 3 times every day, right? We want that bowel movement to be nice and clean and where the toilet paper is just as clean afterwards as it was before. So when we don't pass what I lovingly call the smear test, then that means you're not absorbing the nutrients in your food. And so if you're not absorbing the nutrients, then that gets passed out of the body as well. And it is a medium for particularly E. coli to travel up that fabric of the thong underwear and get into other microbiomes that maybe we're just not really wanting to see there. So I see Melissa's watching. I see Lene's watching. Thank you so much. Pop in with a question if you have a question, and then we'll kind of move along. So the thing about the lactobacillus, if those kind of things pertain to you, the lactobacillus, which is a probiotic. It will really help reconstitute that colony. And hi, Rolanda, good to see you. It will repopulate that colony, and so you're going to have less trouble with the microbiome. Now, I always thought that God was really smart and that he instituted sex and it was a good thing, and it is. I'm just playing with you. But this is what scientists have found, that when the man and the woman comes together, he brings his microbiology, she shares her microbiology, and over the course of a monogamous time, they didn't say exactly how long that was, but over the course of time, the microbiomes in the genital area become homogenized. And that means that they are the same and that they are complementary, not conflicting. So this is kind of a neat thing, because a lot of times when you get newly married, you'll have a lot of UTIs and different things, and they call it honeymoon cystitis, and what that might be is just your microbiomes just not ginning right at first. So that was just something that was interesting. So if we have a little bit less morals and we sleep around a little bit, then you're having that microbiome compromised with multiple other different donor microbiomes, and so you're going to be much more susceptible to sickness and disease. So we always knew instinctively that we did not want to be immoral, but now we've got some science behind it, and just want to caution you about panties and that kind of thing. So just want to let you know about that. We do have some really good bioidentical hormones, and we do have some very good supplements. So if you are suffering from menopause and all of the symptoms that go with that, then we've got some help for you. So I kind of want to move on to breast right now. And so we've been doing a lot of research on this. A lot of this is going to be aimed toward young moms that are breastfeeding, or moms that are wanting to get into that. And so I'm having a lot of little wow faces. So I know I've just kind of blown your mind on some of the things that I just told you. I apologize, but you know what? If I don't tell you, who's going to tell you? Because this is not like mainstream, just not mainstream. So anyway, so this is about the breast. So if you have fibroids in the breast, if you have uterine fibroids, this almost always points to a thyroid dysfunction, but it also points to iodine being insufficient in the body. And I've been reading a lot of clinical results from other medical doctors, and they're treating their patients with iodine, and they're saying that just in a few short months that these fibroids will shrink and even disappear. So that's something that we want you to be aware of. If fibroids, either breast or uterine or even ovarian, if you have fibroids or cysts in the ovaries too, iodine is an element that we're really woefully lacking in. And so if you have those kind of issues, then we want to make sure that we help you to resolve those. And I'm getting all kinds of messages on my phone. So thank you guys for acknowledging and validating this information, because like I say, it's kind of like not on the beaten path. Okay, so breastfeeding. I want to talk about breastfeeding. Now, when I was having my children in the early 80s, natural childbirth was all the vogue, and breastfeeding was all the vogue. In fact, in England, Scotland, where my firstborn was delivered, it was very much the rage to eat the placenta. So I know people are just kind of gagging now. Did not do it, just saying I did not do it. But one of the reasons that they were doing it is because they thought that all of the hormones and all of the rich blood supply that fed the baby would also be good for the new mom to help her with her energy. She's just delivered and all that kind of stuff. So they would fry it. They would do all kinds of things with it. And I didn't do that. I wasn't quite that brave. But when I did deliver, I did ask to see it and to feel it, because I was just kind of curious. And so they brought it to me, and it was beautiful and purple. I mean, who knew that your placenta would be purple? But it was purple. And it's very, very spongy, like a What's a muscle? And it feels like a muscle. So if you know what muscle feels like, you've felt a piece of beef and that kind of thing. That's kind of how it feels. So just kind of, if you wanted to know that, now you know. Okay, so back to breastfeeding. So it's not really the fashion, I think, right now for women to want to breastfeed. And a lot of people think that you'll lose the symmetry of the breast and different things like that because of breastfeeding. And yeah, there are some changes that take place in our bodies when we give birth, but that's the way it is supposed to be. So just want to read you some research here. It says, researchers in the Netherlands, that's Holland, looked at data from more than 4,000 infants and found babies that were exclusively breastfed for more than 4 months had a significant reduction to respiratory and gastrointestinal diseases that occur in infants. They also found that being breastfed until 6 months of age seemed to be even more protective and tended to reduce the number of infections for the infant for the next 6 months. So why is that? Well, immunoglobulin A, IgA, is secreted in breast milk. Scientists believe that the immune factors in the IgA help prevent allergic reactions to food and acts as a protective sealant in the digestive tract. Now, we know that there's some kind of energy transference between the baby's mouth and the mother's nipple. I don't know how this happens, but I've read about it in the medical stuff that I read. The mother's body will respond to whatever chemical messages are in the baby's saliva, and it will cause the mother's milk to build whatever nutritional deficit that the baby needs. So this is kind of a cool thing. You're not going to get this when you have the supplement. Formula is the word I'm looking for. Okay, so this layer of IgA, which is only found in breast milk, makes it really, really easy for the baby. So this is something that I wish I had known. I did breastfeed both of my babies, and I think that's just a great thing. So we've learned that breast milk already contains antibodies that are transferred to the gut of the infant and protect against against allergies and infections until the newborn can synthesize its own antibodies. So it looks like the newborn cannot synthesize its own antibodies until they're about 36 months, maybe 18 months. I've got it highlighted here, but it's not showing up here. Okay, Carly says, been breastfeeding for 10 straight years. Yay. Okay, I'm going to reach up here. It says, I'm so thankful but afraid I need more and better. Yes, you do. Come in and we will get you on some glandular support. Good for you. Take a good prenatal vitamin that has glandular support in it, and it will be really, really good for you because you're doing a good thing for those babies. And congratulations, but you need to take care of yourself too. That's a great comment. Thank you, Carly. Okay, so breast milk also contains a special substance called epidermal growth factor, which promotes growth in the lining of the cells in the baby's intestines, as well as other surface cells, such as cells of the skin. So maybe if you're breastfeeding, your baby's going to be less suspect to eczema and those kind of things. So we'll see. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends exclusively breastfeeding for 4 to 6 months, followed by a year of continual breastfeeding as complementary foods are introduced. However, according to an article published in March 2013 in Pediatrics, that's the name of the magazine, early introduction of solid foods to infants under the age of 4 months is highly prevalent in the United States. So what they're saying is they don't want you to give your baby any solid foods until at least 6 months. And we don't do that here in the United States because we think we know everything. So during the first 3 years of your child's life, the DNA is programmed only to provide digestive enzymes needed to digest the mother's milk. So amylase, which is the enzyme needed to break down starch, is not available in the mouth of the infant until the infant is 6 months old. So that's something to be aware of. The intestines prepare for digesting carbohydrates at the age of 18 months. So when we feed our kids things that they're not able to digest, what are we doing? We're setting them up for leaky gut syndrome, and we're setting them up for malabsorption, so we don't want to do that. Current metabolic programming, right, can predispose the child to be diabetic and obese. So children's allergies are up 400%. Asthma is up 300% since 2009. So that's something to really pay attention to. So if you are not able to breastfeed, I don't want to shame you in that. That's not what this is about. There are some options here, but let me just read some information. So formulas that are found in the grocery store, and I'm going to name names because this was in a study, okay? High fructose corn syrup is shown in a lot of the formulas that are out there. Now, these particular formulas that are soy-based formula have genetically modified organisms in there. These are the brand names: Carnation Alsoy, Similac Neocare, Isomil, and Enfamil Prosobi. So I don't know if anybody's using those, but those particular ones have been found to have genetically engineered ingredients. We know, and we've got a podcast on that. You're just going to have to scroll through and find it. But we know that when people eat genetically modified organisms, it changes their gut and it actually changes your DNA. So you need to be aware of that. So we don't want to do that. One thing found by the CDC, they found that there were toxins in the formula, infant formula, and the one that they were most concerned about is something called percolate or percorolate. I'm not sure how you say that. This is a compound used to make rocket fuel, right, which is known to have detrimental effects on the thyroid as well as hormone production. So these contaminants are also found in water. So when you have this contaminant in your formula and then you mix the formula with water that has the same contaminant in it, then you're setting up your child with some real issues. So what can you do? Hey Trina, hi Kim, thanks for joining in here. There are good organic formulas, and there are food options out there that when prepared with digestive enzymes can offer an even better alternative to the prepared formulas. Now, I know that my firstborn was very hungry, and I started introducing foods at about 4.5 months, which I know that pediatrics say don't do it, but you know, you got to do what you got to do. And so one thing that you can do, what I did is I would just, whatever we had for dinner, obviously not the meat, but whatever vegetables we had for dinner went into the blender with some milk, and that became the baby food for the next day. That's how we did it. And of course, I lived in Europe. There were no genetically modified organisms. There were no genetically modified foods, and everything was fresh. Everything was delivered to the house every other day or whatever. So the food supply was really good. And that's what we did. Of course, the midwife that came to visit me, she wasn't excited about me doing that, but I was tired of dealing with a hungry child 24 hours of the day. And so what you can do if you choose to do that, you want to put some enzymes, some plant-based enzymes. Just open it up and sprinkle it in the formula, and what that'll do is that'll help the baby digest. So that's something, you don't have to have a specific baby formula, although we do have that. We do have a children's formula that's already in a powdered form that's easy to sprinkle. But if you get good plant-based digestive enzymes, something without protease, okay? Protease is a real tough enzyme used to break down proteins. And if the gut is not quite where it needs to be because it's not as developed as it needs to be, that protease may have a tendency to eat through the mucosal lining, and we don't want that. So a plant-based enzyme or a children's enzyme, if you add that to the formula, then that will help the baby to be able to have the enzymes that he needs in order to digest his food. So these are kind of important things to talk about. And I have always been a fan of breastfeeding, but I didn't know exactly why I was a fan, so I'm getting smarter all the time. All the time. So I want to read you this little case study so you can know. There was this lady I know, she's local here in town. She worked with a couple that had finally realized their dream of having a child. They wanted her to go over, and she could hear the baby crying in the background. So she says, once I was able to see the child in person, I could see that he was truly miserable. First, I checked, and the pediatrician recommended formula ingredients and was shocked that it was 70% sugar. 70% sugar. After searching around, I found a powder formula which had around 17% sugar, which was the best that she could find at the time. I recommended, in addition to changing formulas, that the parents incorporate digestive enzymes. With each feeding, they mix digestive enzymes with sterile tepid water in a child's medicine feeder and then dispersed the mixture into the baby's mouth, immediately followed with the new formula. They noticed significant improvement daily and continued to see marked improvement in attitude, restfulness, and bowel movement regularity. The infantile colic completely dissipated. Okay, completely dissipated. Now, while she was on this sugar diet, right, the baby was crying all the time, and the mother had problems with breastfeeding. Her doctor told her that the formula would be better for the child. She mentioned to my friend that she was relieved she did not have so many poopy diapers to change and that the child had only one bowel movement a day. Now, if you've been a mom and you've breastfed your baby or even formula fed your baby, a lot of times when you feed that baby, before you can get finished feeding the baby's already pooped. I mean, that's just what happens. And that's the design of the body. As you take in a meal, the body gets rid of the meal you had before. And so it's just a continual cycle of recycling. And so, but you don't know what you don't know. So the mom thought she was, yay, I only have one poopy diaper a day, but she didn't realize that was one reason why the baby was sick, is because the baby wasn't getting rid of all of his waste every day. Okay? So Hippocrates is quoted as saying, all diseases begin in the gut. All right? So we all want to have enzymes. So if you are over 30, and I'm looking at the people that have signed on here, most of us are over 30. If we did not eat properly when we were young, and I'll confess I didn't know any better, and life is busy and everybody's having fun, you use up all of your pancreatic enzymes. Now, your pancreas produces enzymes. It has a set amount of enzymes, just like your ovaries have a set amount of eggs, and when they're gone, they're gone. The pancreas has a set amount of enzymes, and so if you eat the standard American diet, and we call that the SAD diet, standard American diet, if you eat that diet, then you're going to be depleting all of your enzymes too, because the standard American diet is very deplete of nutrients. Now, foods that you eat that are raw, foods that you eat that are natural, foods that you eat that are organic, they have their own enzymes in there. So if you're eating a live meal, then you have enzymes that you're processing. But most of us eat dead food or slightly dead food because we cook everything, right? Or we don't buy organic. If we don't buy organic, then the fruit or the vegetable is acidic when it's picked. It stays acidic. It's gassed right before it gets to the grocery store, and then we've got issues there. So if you eat a good diet, a good live food diet, you will make some of your enzymes. But we suggest that people over 30 make sure that they take digestive enzymes. Again, if you move your bowels 2 or 3 times a day, which is good, that's called elimination. But we want to make sure that the toilet paper is just as clean afterwards as it was before, because that means that you have absorbed all of your nutrients. If you're not absorbing your nutrients, that is called poor digestion. That is called bad assimilation, malassimilation. Rolanda says, liking the cat U. Yes, cat U is a plant-based enzyme. So that's why we have it, because it's plant-based and people need it and they feel better on it. So if you're over 30, we want you to do enzymes. Now, if you do not have a gallbladder, right, then you need an enzyme that also has ox bile, or they might call it bile salts. Okay, bile salts will help you metabolize the fats that you eat. If you have no gallbladder, you do not have enough bile in a holding tank, which is what your gallbladder is, so that when you eat a high-fat meal, then the gallbladder pushes out all the bile. The bile emulsifies or washes the fat, breaks the fat down so that it's in a usable, assimilatable form. If the fat molecule is not broken down by the bile, then you're going to have problems assimilating the fat. Your brain, I think, is 70% fat. It needs more fat. Your ovaries need fat. Your glands need fat. So if you're not metabolizing your fat, then you're going to be wearing it, and you're going to get heavier and heavier because your body can't break down the fat. Rolanda says, I'm only going once a day. Yes, that's bad unless you only eat once a day. But most of us eat 2 or 3 times a day. Most of us are grazers. I'll confess, I'm a grazer. I eat a little bit in the morning. I have a little snack. I may have lunch. I may have another snack, and then I eat a good dinner. So I'm kind of a grazer. But yes, if you eat more than 1 meal a day, you should be moving your bowels at least 2 to 3 times a day. So, how did we get on digestion? Oh, I know, because malabsorption. If you have that malabsorption issue, then you've got a much greater case or incidence of having those negative critters that are in the bowel microbiome transversing and getting in the vaginal microbiome or in the urethra area. So, giving you a lot of information today, giving you information on our little female issues, also on digestion and breastfeeding. I've got just a few minutes before it is 12:30, and it's a full day for us here at the clinic. But I want to let you know that tomorrow in downtown Humble on Main Street, we're having our annual Good Oil Days Festival. So we're actually going to be out on the street. We're going to be right in front of the clinic, and we're going to be offering free health screenings. So if you're interested, or anybody that you know is interested and you want to come and do that, it'll take about 3 minutes. We'll run a computer program for you, and we'll give you some really good information about your health. So I'm just going to throw that out there. We'll be out there from about 10 in the morning till about 2, and we're located at 323 East Main Street, downtown Humble, corner of Main and Avenue C. Now, there's going to be a whole lot of vendors and food, and I think there's some live music and all that kind of stuff. So it's a great day. It's supposed to be raining in the morning, but it should dry up fairly early. So that's what we're going to be doing tomorrow, and I hope to see you there. Otherwise, I want you to have a great, great weekend, and hope to see you back next Friday on our Lunch and Learn. Take care.